Hello, everyone. Welcome to Community Conversations. My name is Courtney Shaw. I'm the facilitator of our series on technology and change, and I'm very pleased to have somebody who knows a heck of a lot more about technology than I do to give today's presentation. So David Rosi is a pragmatic Renaissance technologist wannabe, in his own words there, a graduate of Lower Columbia College. Woo! And a couple of universities at the same time here. Work experience in lots of industries like food service, retail, outdoor sports, high school mathematics, and has taught information technology here at LCC for the past 20 years. So please welcome David Rosi.
Thanks, everyone. I teach a technical topic, so I'm going to try really hard not to be technical, but it's technology, so it'll be a little bit difficult. And yeah, seems like I don't know anything anymore, as fast as this area is changing. So I had a real hard time zooming in. So I thought, well, let's take the big open widescreen view, and then we'll zoom into my area, which is compute, things compute. And such. So, and focused around, things that touch our lives in technology. So I started with, okay, well, I know what technology is from my viewpoint, but let's see, what are all the people that make definitions know? And, a lot of the dictionaries, they use how people perceive things to define them and a lot. So I went out and did the dictionary search. So this is kind of what Oxford says. There's more centered around a practical purpose in industry. This one was from Merriam-Webster. Application of knowledge, especially in a particular area. Some of these were pretty broad. Has a practical aims around human life to change and manipulate, and the manipulation of human environment. That's Britannica. The study and knowledge of practical, especially industrial use of scientific discoveries. And it was a lot longer. I chopped a whole bunch off and just wanted the point of it. And I think this is the last one. This was dictionary.com, which is a website dictionary that's been around for, it's been since the 90s. I think I remember seeing it, was kind of there. And then I scratched my head and went, okay, well, that's a lot of areas. And then I did a bunch of Google search and I used a bunch of AI tools, and it was all over the place on stuff. So that's kind of the context of which I started to investigate the topic a little broader. As part of that, I went out to Britannica. Let me see if I can zoom this in correctly. And unfortunately, on some of these tools, you're only limited so much. And Britannica kind of had their history of technology. I remember as a kid, the Britannica encyclopedia books right on the shelf, but I don't remember how long that shelf is, but there were 2 shelves wide, and it was, it was 30 or 40 volumes of that. It was long. So I remember that on there. I thought, well, they've been doing this for a long time, keeping track of what's been going on in history and printing in one way or another. So, the first tools, fire, Neolithic revolution. They went way back. Irrigation. I didn't know that. 6000 BC is the first evidence of that was given to somebody. Sailing, iron, gunpowder, windmill. I'm sure a lot of these, you've seen in school or browsing thing. The compass, mechanical clock, printing, steamship. It's interesting when you think back in history about what technology is, what's it considered in terms of the impact on us as humans and the things we do to make life happen and sustain. A little advertisement. Railways, steamboat, photography, reaper, as we get into the 1800s, telegraph, telephone, internal combustion engine, electric light. The dates were interesting. As I went to different sites, there was a range, when do they give first credit? And that doesn't mean that's the first time it was investigated. That's the first time it was significant enough they could attach it to somebody, right? So, the dates are relative, I think. The electric light, the automobile, as we go into the 1900s, radio, airplane, rocketry, television, computer, nuclear power, 42, transistor, which is the start of the excitement for me. Space flight, there was a pretty big gap there between 47 and 57. There had to be more stuff going on, but and space flight, which impacted, the area of computing a lot. There was a lot of significant things going on there in terms of development of compute, which is the general term we kind of use in my field for anything that has any kind of electronic decision-making capability or runs a program, whether it be an electronic program or a written program, the way we normally think of applications. And from our view of my side of the lens on technology and electrical engineering majors, when you build a device, you're actually programming it to do something, and hence the building blocks of the programming we do today and the way we do things. So the personal computer in the 74, the internet began, and it actually began long before that, the building blocks of it with DARPA and some of that in the military, but that's the first. The internet happened for a moment, out there. Not many people accessed it, but it was there. And then again, quite a big jump to CISPRI with a biochemist, and gene editing. And then artificial intelligence began heavily. And again, artificial intelligence was happening back in the 50s and 40s in theoretical form, although they couldn't actually build the theoretical models yet. So remember with these dates, some of these things began way before. This is the first technological implementation of it on a widespread human impact standpoint. So I use some technology. So this is I used 4 AI tools. I used ChatGPT, which is Microsoft's tool from OpenAI that they've been pouring money into for a long time to development. I think they've been pouring money in for 10 years into OpenAI, which is a company that did their initial development for them, research group. I used Amazon's called Gemini now. They changed the name 3-4 months ago. It was Bard before that, maybe you heard of, and they decided to rebrand because of some things that happened that weren't good with the way it worked at first. I used Amazon Q, and I used some Watson stuff, which is from IBM, and they're all pretty close lists. It was a giant list, of things. I asked it most impactful technologies for the last 100 years. And this is the list I got with rough dates. And then it was kind of nice. I got a range of that. And so vaccines, electricity, I think I got this in a relative date chronological order. The automobile in the late 19th century. Although they're saying in 1886, the era began with the Benz automobile. Airplanes, television, antibiotics, it kept coming up. Things around medicine as a technology. So I couldn't leave it out. Nuclear power. And notice the dates are a little different, right? From the Britannica one, now we're the 50s instead of the 40s. So space exploration, the internet, and this is the military and National Science Foundation level beginnings in the 60s. Satellites, semiconductors and microprocessors, personal computer, digital cameras, medical imaging, global positioning systems, smartphones. Didn't say cell phones, it said smartphones, meaning phones that can do more than just the basic phone thing, right? Way more than just the phone call and the text, which we all have now, and it's pretty amazing what they can do renewable energy technologies, robotics and automation, artificial intelligence and machine learning. And again, notice here now, I was kind of happy to see that, you know, from the 50s forward, because again, there was a lot of really smart people in the 50s discussing this, and things have kind of fallen out pretty close to how they envisioned it was possible to do from a theoretical standpoint before the compute even existed, really. There was some compute in the 50s, but not by any means like it is now. And then again, the CRISPR gene editing, I think that's the right way. Is that the right way to say that? The CRISPR, anybody with a medical? So, and chat.openai.com, that's where I went. So if you have a Google account, you can go to openai.com or search for ChatGPT and it'll pop up right away and you can log in with your Google. So I logged in with my college account and it keeps track of everything you search for and kind of makes a recording for you. And it's a pretty good tool. It's not perfect, like many tools we use, but it's pretty amazing. Let's see, am I still in slide mode? So anyway, that was kind of my initial look at the list. The Idea Scale, they're a company that helps people with technology innovation change. They're a change management company around technology. And I thought this was a pretty cool image about when we're talking about innovation in technology that they had and why we do it. The only one they don't have up there is the one we don't want to talk about. You know, tools can be used for good and they can be used for bad. I didn't include that in this presentation, the bad part, but there's a lot going on in the world of technology and in compute that's used for non-good purposes. It's one of the dichotomies of technology and how we use those tools. And so those are all I think the positive things for the most part. That list that I had, and I actually had, you know, 4 versions of the list. That's kind of my honed down version, and I kind of zoomed it in a little bit and combined some things together. There's quite a few websites, but one of the early ones that seems to have really took off when it first came out, it's an artificial intelligence AI site that makes videos. And I said to it, okay, here's a list. Make me a video of, you know, 5 minutes or less that presents all this stuff. So this is generated by AI, including the voice. Now the images are, you know, put together from real images and video clips that it's gathered off the internet. I didn't go investigate how copyright accurate it is, although there's been a lot of lawsuits in the last 3 years on that, and there's been some pretty hard pushback on giving credit for things with these sites. And I know this site's one that they've tried pretty hard. You know, just because it's on the internet doesn't mean we own it. I have to remind students of that all the time. And so you have to read that copyright thing. Can we use it? They say all the stuff's copyrighted, is okay, you know, to use. So I'm not selling anything with it. So I hope we're good here on this.
Have you ever wondered?
On that
Whoops.
commitment with a landmark.
I have
preliminary
wondered. I
agreement
clicked on the wrong thing.
Have you ever wondered?
ever in the history of these 2 states.
That delay.
Have you ever wondered how the technology we use today came to be? Our journey begins in the late 19th century, when the world was first lit by the brilliance of commercial electric power. Visionaries like Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla sparked a revolution, transforming the way we live and work. Around the same time, a certain Carl Benz was busy laying the foundation for the modern automobile era. His creation, the Benz patent motor wagon, made its debut in the year 1886, setting the stage for a revolution in mobility and transport. As we entered the 20th century, the Wright brothers took a leap of faith and humanity took its first flight. That successful flight in 1903 marked the beginning of modern aviation, forever changing our perspective of the world. Meanwhile, television technology was evolving through the 1920s and 1930s, eventually leading to its widespread adoption and altering the way we consume entertainment and information. From lighting up our homes to taking us places, these early innovations laid the groundwork for the technological revolution. But how did we conquer some of the deadliest diseases known to mankind? Let's take a journey through time to answer that question. It all began in the late 18th century with Edward Jenner's groundbreaking creation of the smallpox vaccine. This was our first step towards immunization, a method that has since saved countless lives from various diseases. Fast forward to the 1920s when the world was introduced to antibiotics. Penicillin, discovered by Alexander Fleming, became a beacon of hope, combating bacterial infections that were once considered fatal. This discovery ushered in a new era of medicine, transforming the way we approach disease treatment. The 1970s and 1980s marked another leap in medical technology with the introduction of medical imaging. MRI and CT scans allowed for non-invasive, detailed examination of the human body. This revolutionized diagnostic medicine, enabling early detection and treatment of many conditions. These medical miracles have not only extended our lifespans, but have also improved the quality of our lives. So when did our lives become so digitally intertwined? It all started in the late 1960s with the birth of ARPANET, the precursor to the modern internet. This innovation laid the groundwork for a world connected in ways previously unimaginable. Then came the 1970s, a decade that witnessed the birth of personal computing. Machines like the Altair 8800 and the Apple II brought computing power into homes, offices, and schools, forever changing the way we process information. But the digital revolution didn't stop there. Fast forward to the 2000s, and we find ourselves in the smartphone era. Launched in 2007, the iPhone marked the beginning of a new digital age where information, entertainment, and communication would forever be at our fingertips. These digital tools, from the internet to personal computers to smartphones, have not just changed how we interact with technology, but they've transformed the way we live, work, and communicate. But how did we reach beyond our planet and explore the unknown? In the mid-20th century, we took our first steps into the cosmos. The space age dawned with the launch of Sputnik 1 in 1957, a shining beacon of humankind's potential. Following this, the Apollo program of the 1960s catapulted us to the moon, marking a monumental achievement in human history. Around the same time, we began to harness the power of satellites. The first artificial satellites like Sputnik 1 and Telstar 1 revolutionized communication and observation, shrinking our world while simultaneously expanding our cosmic perspective. As we ventured into the 1970s, another significant innovation took shape. The Global Positioning System, or GPS, began its initial development. By the early 90s, it became fully operational, transforming navigation and making the world a more interconnected place. These innovations have not only expanded our horizons, but have also reshaped our understanding of the universe. What does the future hold for us in terms of technological advancements? As we gaze into the horizon, we catch a glimpse of a world transformed by renewable energy technologies. Imagine a future where solar panels and wind turbines are as commonplace as the smartphone in your pocket, powering our lives with clean, endless energy. Then there's the realm of robotics and automation. Picture a world where robots are our co-workers, automating mundane tasks and giving us the precious gift of time. Now let's venture into the abstract world of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Envision a reality where machines learn, adapt, and even predict, reshaping industries and redefining our relationship with technology. Lastly, let's delve into the microscopic world of CRISPR and gene editing technology. Imagine a world where we can rewrite our genetic code, unlocking cures for diseases and potentially extending our lifespan. As we stand on the brink of the next technological revolution, one can only imagine what the future holds.
So that's in video, invideo.com. I didn't feed it transcript, you can feed it a very detailed transcript and tell it exactly what you want it to do. And it'll do animations. I've done one on, for I teach web design. As a beginning IT class, and I have a little intro to the, cause I used to blab, blab, blab about it. And now I have a little 5-minute clip on, the development of the internet. Where does that thing begin? Where did it come from that we use now and think is ubiquitous to us, and we, it's everywhere. So pretty cool tool. Oh, there it is. Somehow I got an animation going here. So on this last little parts, I kind of zoomed in on compute. Oh, one thing I was going to take about the GPS, I didn't realize, when that first came out, it was about a 13-meter accuracy level. Now we're like less than a foot for just a non-commercial, for us, not military grade, about how accurate that actually can be. It's much higher on the military grade levels. So pretty amazing on that. From my standpoint in the compute area, what are the most impactful things going on right now? Well, AI, machine learning, which includes big data and machine learning, are the building blocks of AI. And so I thought, well, let's go through some of the things going on around that field. So in no particular order of importance, somehow quantum computing came about. When the mainframe concept, which was the commercial grade computer, and at first, they filled floors of buildings, and then it ended up as a computer about, I think when we first got this one here, Dave, do you remember that one that the math department got? It was about the size of this desk, wasn't it? That first IBM mainframe they had, that when they first started teaching computing here, and wasn't too long after, a lot of universities had those, and it was a pretty spendy piece of equipment, but it was about the size of this, and you fed punch cards in it. And then they got a keyboard, which is like state of the art. When I was going to school here, that was here still, back in the 70s. And then, the personal computer, when I went away to university in 83 up to Western, they had their first lab of IBM 1 PCs, and we could sit down at our own computer and type on a keyboard. And I learned typing here on IBM Selectric, but then when I went up there, I got to type on the IBM 1 PC, and things kind of exploded from there. Went to work for Boeing, bought my first PC for $4,500. It was a 386 processor, which, so the numbers are meaningless, but it was a long time ago, and $4,200, and it had like 10 megabyte of hard drive. That little USB stick most of you carry around in your pocket, if it's smaller than 16 gig, it's small, and 16 gig is nothing now. And that little USB stick is way bigger than it needs to be. What's inside there is actually a 1/4 inch by 1/2 inch. And that's actually bigger than it needs to be to hold that, the electronics going on there to store that amount of information. So it wasn't much. And you had to flop that, it was 5 1/4 inch floppy disk, and you had to feed them in and out to get something to go. And that was a lot of fun. And you had to know what you were doing, because stuff didn't work when you installed the software, unlike now where it's a lot more plug and play than it used to be. And then, the internet really took off, and we started to get this thing out on the internet called cloud computing to begin to develop pretty quick. I mean, it was small at first, but now I don't know what a big data center would be, but a small one is a 1/2 mile square. They're enormous data centers, and they're all over the place. Within an hour of us, there are 3 of them, I think, data centers, and here we are. You go to Eastern Washington, you're going down the Columbia River, and you pass, actually, there's a great big Microsoft one there, and I think there's a Google one there, and they're enormous. And so this quantum computing is the next evolution that's being worked on. There actually are production models. It's not what we call generalized compute, a computer that can pretty much do anything we ask it to do from a compute standpoint. At first when they built computers, they were pretty specialized in what they could do. Well, quantum computers are still that way. They're really good at answering efficiency question. What's the best route from A to B for trucking companies? What's the most efficient way to handle inventory stuff? There's a lot of work going on both in the programming side and the trying to use the computer side and the development of the computer to make it generalized. And there's quite a few companies.
Imagine a computer.
Let's see, let me show you this list first. So I did a little quick Google search. Okay, who are the companies that are doing, that Google considers on a search response to be into quantum? So there they are. IBM's been doing a lot of work for a long time. Amazon's been doing some work. Microsoft now is, I don't know if they have their own quantum computer yet. Google does. Baidu is in India. They do a lot of work in it. And of course, some of the universities. There's one in Canada that's the company that actually sells retail commercial versions of quantum computers to companies and leases time, and they're not on the list, which I'm kind of surprised by. But anyway, those are the companies that are into that. And here's a little short
Imagine a
thing
computer
on
that could solve the world's
quantum.
biggest problems. A computer that could simulate novel materials to help sequester carbon from the Earth's atmosphere, or help us develop new low-cost fertilizers that require less energy and less fossil fuels to produce. Now, there isn't a conventional supercomputer on Earth capable of solving these problems. But quantum computing is a new form of computation that harnesses the power of quantum mechanics and is expected to solve problems beyond the reach of today's classical computers. With this nascent technology, we aim to create a supercomputer that seamlessly integrates quantum and classical power together, the same way that today's computers integrate both CPUs and GPUs. We call this quantum-centric supercomputing. And our vision is to build a 100,000 qubit quantum-centric supercomputer by 2033.
I think we're at just over
Stop
10 right
tackling
now.
its biggest problems.
Not very many.
This system will look nothing like the quantum computing that we have today. To achieve this kind of scale and power, we need to develop more advanced engineering, further research into fundamental physics, and push at the very edges of computer science and quantum information theory. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but we already have the first building blocks for quantum-centric supercomputing. It's called IBM Quantum System 2. We shared our designs for it in late 2022, and we're planning to share our first working system in 2023. By connecting multiple quantum system 2s together, we plan to create systems of many thousands of qubits. But to continue on the path towards 100,000 qubits, we'll need to work hand in hand with the world's finest academic institutions, research organizations, and enterprises. So we're proud to announce that the first partnerships in our journey are with the University of Tokyo and the University of Chicago, both leading institutions in the fields of quantum computer
That's
science,
the processor right
quantum
there.
components, quantum algorithm design, and quantum communication. Together, we are taking the first steps to make 2033 the year of quantum-centric supercomputing.
IBM, that's from IBM, of course. They've been the leader kind of in development. And there's free training. I mean, I could do 2 whole talks just on that. There's so much going on and how rapidly it's growing. It's actually commercially used. Most of what you saw in that big gold thing that hung from the ceiling, the white cases, I don't know if you saw the round white cases, there were like 4 of them in a row. Those are actually cooling chambers. They have to cool that to colder than space. It's more than -200 Celsius, which is pretty incredible. They can cool that colder than space. And so most of that is about cooling and prepping to send stuff to the processor. And down at the very bottom is just the little processor. The key there is, I think, still is that, how to make that processor so it can answer all the kinds of questions we need to ask it, more generalized. And so again, that's what they're working for, is generalized compute. In cloud computing, cloud computing, there is no cloud, it's just the internet, right? But out there in the internet, there's a great big sets of buildings out there with computers, like a lot like what you have at home, except they're not put in that way, and everything's spread out. The hard drives are over in one part and the memory's in another part, and the power supplies are, varied around, and the CPU motherboards are in a different spot. And when you run a program, it doesn't run on just one of them, it spreads it out. It distributes the way it hands that stuff out. And we're to the point now where data centers can work on problems together. So the power of cloud computing is there's so many computers you can throw at one problem or parts of a problem. We can break the problem up and work on it and bring it together. And so they run very specialized operating systems. So these terms are the terms we see around cloud computing. The AAS stands for as a service. So I is infrastructure as a service. So these are there's the companies that do infrastructure as a service. I need networking, and I need CPUs, and I need, video capability and the infrastructure, the things that it takes to make computing happen from a electronic standpoint. And this was just a link out to some resources if I handed it out. So there's lots of little links in here. I'm not going to go through the comma ones, I don't think. The S in SaaS, that stands for software as a service. So do I need computers? Infrastructure as a service. Do I just need software? Like Google Drive, right? I want to build a document, or I built this slideshow in Google Slides. So this is software as a service I'm using. And so those are a lot of the companies that provide software as a service, and a lot of them will be, you might recognize the names in different ways. Now, some of these companies have their own infrastructure as a service, and some of them use other people's infrastructure as a service. These companies, they have a part of their company or the whole company, they specialize in providing software in the cloud, as opposed to the computing capability in the cloud. And of course, you got to have both. The computer doesn't do any good if you can't run any software, and the software can't run if it doesn't have a computer to run on. So some of these companies like Microsoft and Google and Amazon, they have both that they do. And then the P stands for platform. So that's a combination of infrastructure and software. I'm like at home, your computer, it's a platform. It's got everything there that you need to make compute happen. So this is a combination of those. So like I use Plusk. It's a video streaming service, kind of like Netflix, that you can do your own. So I have a little computer network storage device at home, and it's got a little app in it, like the app you put on your phone. A little bigger than that, but kind of like that. And then they have a cloud service, and anywhere I go, I can log into my network access storage device at home through the internet, and I can watch videos that I own, myself. I'm not somebody else's, because that would be copyright infringement. So anyway, platform as a service. And then the D, now, of course, I'm going brain dead all of a sudden here. Sorry. Desktop. Yeah. So they provide whole desktop experience. So I use Amazon Workspace. If I got a pretty good computer at home, and I got a couple of great ones here, but there's some stuff I do that occasionally for companies or for work I do here that it's not a big enough capability. So I have an Amazon Workspace, and all what that is I go in and I have an account. I go in and I tell it what kind of computer I want. And of course I pay by the type of computer. You can spend $3 a month, and you can spend thousands of dollars a month, depending on how much compute capability you want. And so I do some contract work for a company up out of Seattle that does healthcare monitoring. They do temperature, humidity, and room pressure monitoring medical environments. And it's enormous amounts of data. There's, I don't know how many thousands of sensors we have out. And it all comes back to our central Amazon space, and problems happen. And I'm the guy I do hardware and software development for them part-time, just, a few hours here and there. And when things go wrong, I got to handle so much data. I can't download it to my computer. It takes hours. So I use this, and I specially tune it, and I install the software I need, and then I analyze the data, and figure out what's wrong. Why isn't the equipment or the software working the way it's supposed to? Is there something wrong with the data, or is it, is everything okay? And like your download speed at home, you never even approach it'll download 500 megabyte a second. It's an enormous amount. And I've had stuff where it's taken 10 minutes to download everything. Whereas at home, it'd probably take 24 hours. I'm not even sure I could download it. It'd probably crash and burn on that. So this is, these are the companies that provide cloud-based. You run it like you run the internet from the end here, but out there you can have whatever kind of computer capability you need. And you can focus it on the type of thing you're trying to do. So that's cloud computing. Those are the primary tasks. I'm not sure, when you say cloud computing, and I think most people, well, it's just the internet. It's like, nah, that's just a web server. I got one of those. That's no big deal. That's just a computer that runs HTML, and you go in and you tell it, I want this file, and it spits back a thing that doesn't do anything. I mean, this is actual computer here, this kind of cloud computing that we're talking about. So, yeah. The Internet of Things. It's another weird term. I don't know where they come up with these names. The Internet of Things. I was going to say small, but they aren't all small, but most of the time they're pretty small. The little devices we use, they're about 3 inches long, and they're about 1 inch wide and 3/4 of an inch thick. And they're that big because they got to have a battery in them that lasts 3 to 5 years. And we put them in a refrigerator or put them in a room somewhere. And most of them are pretty small like that. I've seen some IoT devices well, your Ring doorbell, right? It's an IoT device. Anybody using Alexa, Amazon Alexa, any of that anymore? Or those all kind of, have we worn that one out? But that was an IoT device. Your other camera devices you might have around your refrigerator. Anybody have a computer on the refrigerator where it's got or you can log into it through your wireless device? So it has a little computer in it, and it has internet capability. And if you log it in, you can check how your refrigerator is doing. Ovens are that way. Microwaves are that way. When you think about all the appliances at home now that have a little teeny computer in them, and you can hook it up to your network, and through a phone app, you can tell it to start the oven or turn on the dishwasher or look at what's going on around your house. The ones I do are little devices, and they send data back. And so really that's kind of, little devices we can log into or send data back. On airplanes, it's 1,000 sensors, and it's streaming data back to the airline company and the FAA all the time about what's going on the airplane, and performance monitoring and thing to make sure everything's going okay. So they're everywhere. They're on the top of the police car with the little thing riding around, where they're checking license plates and taking pictures of people's faces as you walk down the street, and like all over the place. So that's what it means by Internet of Things, because it streams through the internet. And yeah, so the collective network of connected devices and the technology that facilitates communication between the devices and the cloud or the internet, as well as between devices themselves. So I'm not sure even that definition it makes a whole lot of sense sometimes. So here's a short list: smart thermostats, home assistants. That's Google's is Google, what's their one called? They have Hub for home, like your lights and your temperature, and they have another one too, though. And then a lot of people, anybody have a thermostat, smart thermostat? Yeah, that runs off of AI, actually, off the internet and stuff to help heat your home efficiently and reduce the amount of energy we use. Smart doorbells, smart door locks, There's health and fitness trackers, appliances we talked about, cars, all the electric cars. Pretty much any new car is going to have IoT devices in it. It might even just be sending data back to the company that manufactured it to help them know how things are going on their equipment and make improvements on their equipment in some cases. Environmental stuff, irrigation. I have some family Yakka workers in irrigation, and one of them used to do water. And I remember when I first got married into the family, he used to have to drive out 4 times a day and turn water off and on all the fields in Yakima down on lateral A. He doesn't do that anymore. He gets his phone out, he goes, and he can even look with the camera to verify it's running. They still have to do drive-by to make sure the little drip spouts are all, because they do drip irrigation to be efficient with water for the most part. But it's way less work than it used to be for him because of the IoT trackers. Pet trackers, health monitors, and then agriculture, which is Columbia Basin in eastern Washington. It's right on the Columbia River before you go over across the river to Idaho there. They do a lot of agricultural development stuff for all the orchards and vineyards there. So anyway, and here's
Hey everyone,
one little
welcome
video
to our
on that.
channel. Today we're going into some real-life examples of how IoT blends seamlessly into our daily lives. Before we get started, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more IoT videos. Now let's start with parking. Finding a parking spot in a crowded city can be a nightmare. That's why people turn to third-party apps for finding spots. But did you know those parking apps are all IoT enabled? For example, Parkopedia helps you find available spots in real time, all from the comfort of your smartphone. And how does it do that? Well, there are sensors embedded in parking spaces that detect whether they're occupied or vacant. These sensors then communicate wirelessly with the app, providing real-time updates. Another everyday example making use of these sensors is waste management. Overflowing trash bins are not only unsightly, but also a health hazard. IoT-powered smart waste bins use sensors to monitor their fill level, alerting waste management services when it's time for collection. It's a cleaner, more efficient way to keep cities tidy. Then there are smart streetlights equipped with sensors that detect ambient light levels and adjust their brightness accordingly. This helps save energy and reduce light pollution. It also creates safer and more welcoming streets for pedestrians and cyclists. When it comes to getting around town, IoT is revolutionizing public transportation. Real-time tracking systems like NextBus use a network of sensors and GPS technology to provide commuters with up-to-the-minute information about bus and train arrivals, helping you to plan your journey more efficiently and reducing wait times. And for those who prefer 2 wheels over 4, IoT-enabled bike-sharing systems offer a convenient and eco-friendly way to get around. You can locate and unlock bikes using your smartphone, making bike sharing accessible to everyone, from daily commuters to casual riders. But the benefits of IoT extend beyond individual transportation modes. Smart traffic management systems use data from cameras, sensors, and connected vehicles to optimize signal timing, reduce congestion, and improve traffic flow, keeping cities moving smoothly. IoT technology even plays a vital role in environmental monitoring and sustainability. Sensors placed throughout urban areas measure air quality, pollution levels, and noise levels, providing valuable data to city planners and policymakers for improving public health and quality of life. From smart homes to transportation systems, environmental sensors, and beyond, IoT technology is seamlessly integrating into every aspect of our lives, making our world smarter, more efficient, and more connected. Thanks for watching. Let us know what IoT video you'd like to see next in the comments below.
That's an organization that kind of specializes, a community of IoT is what it is. And there's a lot of work going on in agriculture, picking strawberries and picking apples and picking oranges and all of the work intensive stuff where, it's been hard to get people to come do that now because we don't pay enough, or you know, the whole migrant thing and everything. So companies have been getting really incentive about, and there's been a whole spring up of companies that just manufacture that stuff. So there's a lot of that out on the internet. The parking one, I had a team of rocket scientists, so it's been 5 years now, when we had a bunch of CS majors and we had a club and they wanted to do some, you know, just projects. Well, we did a little project where we were using a Raspberry Pi, a little computer that's 3x4. And we had a solar panel and a little battery and a little teeny camera about a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. And we were working on a project to mount it on the light poles to shine down on take a snapshot of the parking lot for students. And then inside that Raspberry Pi, process the picture and figure out all the parking spots were marked. The software would identify the lines in the parking lot, and it would see the cars and then mark that. They were all numbered the way they built it. And then we were going to put that on the internet for students with a little phone app so they could see where there was an open park space. But students own their products when they develop stuff like that. And so the students wanted to keep it, didn't want to share it. So off it went to us. But I think they actually finished it and it turned out pretty cool. And I don't know if they ever sold it or anything, but yeah, we don't see a ton of that level of kind of stuff around here because we're not, you know, it takes a lot of money to go put all those sensors everywhere. And you got to have a lot of infrastructure for internet, of course, but yeah, Internet of Things. And then robotics in agriculture. This one here, this robot turns the ground over so the weeds don't grow up. This is an inside lettuce growing operation. And this little robot, I think it's about 2 feet wide or 18 inches to 2 feet wide and about 24 to 30 inches long. And it's just goes down the aisle and turns the ground and helps the weeds. This one over here on the left is an airplane and it flies over and sprays. They do that with quadcopters too. So there's quite a bit of stuff on there, but I'm getting down to the end here. So there's a bunch in construction of robotic stuff. And so paint dispensing and sealing, inspection, machining, material handling, packaging, palletizing, vision systems to check inspection, welding robotics. I don't know if you've seen any of the 3D printing devices. It's a big gantry system. They put it over where they're going to build a building, and you pour concrete in a hopper and it goes and lays a layer of special. It's not the normal concrete. It's got to have a certain amount of viscosity so that it stays stable, and it cures a little faster, but they go and lay special like waffle grid and they build the walls for a building using it like you would 3D print a little plastic part, you know, at home, if you've seen any of that. So there's some pretty cool robotic stuff in construction areas. And then there's just, you know, cruise automation, Tomahawk robotics, Starship, you know, these are just company after company that has sprung up and specializes in robotics. Big data. Big data is the beginning points of machine learning and artificial intelligence. So to be able to train a computer to do something, when I say computer in this case, it's not one computer. Again, it's, you know, thousands of computers potentially to do artificial intelligence. You have to have data to train it. So these companies specialize in big data. And again, we got IBM and Oracle, Cloudera, Netflix, Google. Netflix does a lot of development in big data because that's how they figure out how to show people different shows and movies on.
Did you define that?
Big data.
Yeah.
The processing and making sense of vast amounts of data that is so big you can't do it with normal compute. That's probably the best definition of that, you know, at a real basic level. And so these companies, they have either the whole company or part of the company specializes in gathering up all the data they can gather about the topic they specialize in and trying to make the best decisions they can. And a lot of times you can't do it with standard methods. You have to use specialized methods to do that. And so this has kind of been bleeding edge for, I don't know, we're probably 10 years now, but now we just had an explosion in this. And the Apache organization is one of the organizations. So this is Apache's an organization that does internet-based software. So they make web server software and such. And so there's, 68 different projects they have. And a lot of companies work on that. So when you got all that data, then you can start to train a computer on how to make decisions. And that's what machine learning is. And so we have some special software that been programmed to learn, and like it does plant recognition. So you feed it as many pictures of plants as you can in all the different lights and angles and shades. And so you take your phone, there's an app on your phone where you can recognize plants, you take a picture of it. That's machine learning that taught that piece of software how to recognize that on that. And so that's the process of taking all that data you collected and helping a computer begin to digest it in a way that we can do meaningful things with it. And then, Microsoft is a big, they're one of the companies that does a lot of that, and they've got a lot of business support on that. I'm almost out of time here, so I'm trying to, this is actually the last slide. And then artificial intelligence, when you've got all this machine learning together, and then it's like, okay, how do we make really good decisions with that? And so that's the thing with AI, artificial intelligence. And boy, has it exploded in the last year. It's amazing how many different. And so this is OpenAI Chat GPT. What's the song? Let's see. We'll do a Yellow Submarine from the Beatles. Let's see if it'll answer it. It may not, because it might be a copyrighted thing. Oh, and it's going to be slow internet. Normally this is really fast. I bet because of the Zoom streaming. Yeah, I don't know if you've used this, but you can just go to openai.com and you can log in with your Google account, and it'll use it. Looks like it doesn't want to do it for me today. Gemini is Google's version of that. And you can chat with it. Doesn't like this computer for whatever reason. And so they're another company that, uses it. Amazon Q, this is for business. So this is Amazon AWS services. Amazon Workspace is what AWS stands for. And they have a Amazon Q that businesses can ask questions, and it can help them solve all kinds of business related questions. That's what that's focused and specialized around. Facebook is Meta AI, which is also on, it's not on Twitter, but it's on, it's also in a couple other companies are using Meta's work on that. So that's their artificial intelligence tool. And IBM's is Watson X, which again is focused around business solution. This has been around for a long time. They've been working on this, but it's really hit some rapid development. So anyway, just as a side note, if you want to hey, I want to learn how to do some of this. The Washington State Library System, you can get a free Washington State Library number. You go to their website, and if you're a resident of Washington, and then they have free training through LinkedIn and a whole bunch of other companies where you can get free training on all kinds of things, on math, on history, on writing, on a lot of technologies. I've done some courses through them on cybersecurity, and actually did one on quantum computing. I went and wrote some programs to see kind of how it worked and did some playing with it. And so it's a Washington State Inclusive Initiative. So you have to get the electronic number from them, and then you can go get access to the online services, as well as places. There's a whole bunch of them. Khan Academy does a lot of training around education and things, but there's lots of courses here, and some of them are free. And the same thing with Coursera. And so there's a lot of basic intro training things on these topics from those kinds of places as well as others. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much, David, for giving us this overview here. And I guess we could do like a question if anybody got it. Okay.
You never, I know why you didn't mention it, but you haven't mentioned any of the unintended consequences like environmental problems caused by these big data centers.
Yeah, there was too much, right?
There's too
There's
much.
way too much. So like, okay, well, let's talk about what's happening right now. As a matter of fact, related to that, related to artificial intelligence, which happens to run in data centers. I just was talking to somebody that has a relative that's what they do. They help data centers manage their electrical grid. And AI has caused a 300% increase in electrical use in data centers over the last 3-ish years.
They use a
since it's
lot of
implemented.
water
So
too.
this stuff is consuming a lot more energy. I mean, 300%. And a data center doesn't use, I don't know how many homes you'd have to put together to talk about the amount of energy that one data center uses, but it is a lot of homes. It's probably thousands of homes for one data
So
center.
can we afford to do this? No.
In my view, no, but that's not it's even more complex than that because, we're having a lot of cyber attacks coming from places now using AI. It's AI. That they've built special AI tools just to attack infrastructure. There was right off the bat, there was questions of the pattern of that ship that hit the bridge and it collapsed, and we lost a bunch of people. There was questions of if that was a targeted, it had a footprint similar to cyber attacks. I don't know that actually, I haven't seen anything that says that was actually the case, but there were some pretty serious cyber people that said, that kind of looks like a pinpointed test pattern for a cyber attack, which probably means it was driven by some specialized AI infrastructure tool. So yeah, there's some nasty stuff going. Remember, use a tool for good, use a tool for bad. Unfortunately, that's the way it works with humans.
Yeah, go watch Real Genius.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're gonna cut off
Yeah, that's
and
fine.
we can do any questions afterwards here. Okay, thank you.
The dark web.